Welcome to Bad Dog Agility, a podcast helping you reach all of your dog agility goals. Whether it's competing under the bright lights of the televised finals at Westminster or successfully navigating a homemade course in your own backyard, we'll bring you training tips, interviews, and news about the great sport of dog agility. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
The show starts with your hosts, Jennifer, Esteban, and Sarah.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Esteban.
And I'm Sarah, and this is episode 365. This podcast is brought to you by Synovitin OA. Hey, dog lovers, is your furry friend limping or struggling to enjoy agility like they used to? It might be osteoarthritis, OA, a common source of pain and mobility issues in dogs that's driven by inflammation in their joints. Inflammation is the silent enemy, not only causing pain, but also accelerating the progression of OA. Synovitin OA is a groundbreaking one-time injection into the arthritic joint that targets the very cells causing the pain and inflammation. By eliminating these harmful cells, Synovitin OA breaks the cycle of inflammation, offering relief right where it's needed most. Don't let your dog suffer from the pain of arthritis. Visit activedognow.com to learn more about Synovitin OA and give your dog the gift of long-lasting pain-free movement. Studied in canine elbows, Synovitin OA is given by authorized veterinarians. Temporary discomfort in the treated joints may occur. Talk to a treating veterinarian near you for more information and visit activedognow.com.
Today's podcast, we are going to be talking about why you need a coach, even if you don't think you do. And whenever I'm leading a podcast, I like to start by defining my terms. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the difference between coaching and instruction. And in my view, in dog agility, it's largely functionally interchangeable, right? So I kind of think of them as the same thing. They both refer to guidance that helps someone improve. And I think this kind of leads me to the larger idea that we've all had many coaches. Some of them are officially coaches or instructors, and some are not. And I'm going to throw this out there. You may be someone's coach and not even know that you are their coach. But first, I want to throw it to Jennifer because I hear Jennifer has a more precise distinction or definition of a coach versus an instructor.
I'm not sure I have very specific definitions. I'm not Webster here, but I guess in my mind, I think of coach and instructor slightly different if we're specifically talking about agility. In my mind, an instructor is somebody who is truly just helping you with the agility skills, whether it be teaching the dog a specific obstacle or the handling. So teaching the handler how to perform a certain move. So I think of you're in a once a week class, you meet every Thursday at 6:00, you go to that class, you work through that content. That instructor is exactly that. They're your instructor. They are instructing you and telling you how in that hour you can improve, what you need to do, what your homework is for that week. Versus coaching, I think is a little bit more hands-on and a little bit more big picture. To me, a coach is somebody who you discuss your goals with, both short-term and long-term. I think there's somebody who maybe helps you make decisions about what shows to enter, how to prep for big events, maybe more of the mental management side of things. And I think an instructor and a coach can be the same person, but I also think it's reasonable to have an instructor and a coach who are different people. And I think there are sometimes people have an instructor, but maybe they don't feel like they have a coach, right? They go to their weekly class, but they don't have somebody maybe helping them make decisions. And I don't know that you've even, people have even defined, like as a student, I don't know that you've even thought about it or defined as, oh, yes, I have an instructor and yes, I have a coach, but maybe it's something to think about. And same thing for the instructor or the coach. There are certain people that I work with that I view myself as simply the instructor. They come, they see me, I help them get better at a front cross or rear cross, and then that's the end of it. I'm not getting videos, I'm not getting updates, I'm not getting texts of like, hey, we went 5 for 6 this weekend, this was great, or what do you know about this judge? Do you think I should enter? Are they going to have good courses for what I'm working on? That's kind of more the coaching side. So, and I don't know that it's a black and white line in the sand. I think it's kind of more of like a relationship that evolves over time. But that's how I think about it in my head, both as a participant of agility, but also as somebody who teaches, instructs, and kind of coaches.
Yeah, that's such a great introduction to all the different areas that intersect at this idea of a coach and an instructor. For the most part, I think in this podcast, I'm going to use the two a little bit interchangeably, but I think we're going to mostly refer to coaches and coaching. I also want to go back to something Jennifer mentioned. She said she is not Webster. And that's such a good quote, right? Because clearly Jennifer's talking about Webster's dictionary. And we are children of the generation where everyone's got a little bit of a library and everyone has a dictionary in that library, right? You're taught in school. In fact, I think I remember an English class where there's tons of dictionaries, right? And everybody grabs one and you put it on your desk and the teacher will tell you to look up this or that. But I wonder now if there's an entire generation of dog agility trainers listening to this podcast right now saying,
who's Webster?
Who is Webster and why isn't Jennifer Webster? So I just wanted to put that out there. I thought that was really good. So yeah, I think Jennifer makes such a great point, though, that coaches aren't just necessarily the people who are running your weekly class, right? And I had alluded to the fact earlier that some people never even call themselves a coach, right? And I think this speaks to this idea in dog agility that we're learning from everybody, so many different people, right? You're learning from your classmates. I've learned from just watching my competitors run, right? These aren't even people I work with. I learned from people that I've never spoken to, right? Your training partners, I think, can be instructors and coaches. And that relationship will often meander into the coaching relationship, right? Obviously, with technology and social media and YouTube and sharing our videos everywhere, we do a lot of learning online as well, right? It's not just happening at the shows or in your weekly class. I remember back in the day, you had to wait a whole week with your questions that you wanted to ask your instructor in it. And if you wanted to explain a problem, but you couldn't explain it very well, you'd be like, well, let me get my dog out and show you what's happening, right? You had to actually do that and wait a week to get that done. Now you don't have to do that, right? So we're learning from each other online, taking courses with different instructors, right? You may be enrolled in several different online courses, right? I think we also are in an era of, Sarah and I were talking about this, extreme specialization and diversification. And what I mean by that is dog agility used to all be about dog training, but now we understand that there's a lot of human psychology in sports performance, right? So if you're showing up at big events, you're not doing as well as you like, you consistently underperform, that might not be something that your weekly agility instructor can help you with, right? But if you got a sports psychology coach, they might be able to help you with that, right? So I think that's one example. Another example, well, actually, I was going to have each of us talk about an example where we worked with a coach. And so I think this is a nice lead-in to Sarah and some work she's doing now. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Sarah.
Yeah. So actually, I guess I'm going to kind of hit two birds with one stone here and talk about both, the work that I'm doing, but also this idea that you brought up of kind of specialization, because that's something that I've often brought up as well, even with my own students, because there are certain topics in agility that I feel merit a specialist. And the way that I always describe it is there are some things, and I'm going to put one out there, running contacts. I think running contacts are the equivalent of like brain surgery if you were looking at a doctor. Like if you go to your family medicine doctor, they may be the best family medicine doctor in the world, and they can help you with a lot. Right? Mm-hmm. They can help you with so many different problems that are going on in your body, but they cannot go do brain surgery on your brain, and you wouldn't want them to, and you wouldn't ask them to, right? So I think of running contacts as that brain surgery. It requires a specialist, and I will help people with their running contacts. I've done a lot of running contacts classes myself. I know a lot of the theory. I've worked with several dogs, but it's one of those specialist things that I usually recommend somebody go to a specialist for versus me being, I guess, a little bit more of a generalist in agility. And so that kind of speaks to that specialist versus generalist idea in agility. And so then about like my own coaching, like I do work with running contacts people on running contacts, and I find it to be extremely helpful. And it's not that I don't know what to do. And I know the steps and I know what to do and I know the theory and I know the training. But what I often get stuck at is when to move on. Like I tend to, stay at one spot, looking for perfection. And a lot of I find for me personally, this could be different for different people. I find for me personally, it's the coach that gives me permission to move on. If I hadn't had that coach, I would just be sitting there repping out the same like mat work, feeling like that I wasn't there yet. And it's usually the coach that says, you've gotten enough out of this part of the drill to move on to whatever the next drill is, right? So when to move on, and then problem solving when things don't work out. I find that to be incredibly useful with coaches. And so like right now I'm working with a young dog, a Malinois, on the A-frame and the dog walk. And I'm working with Ewan Patterson as my running contacts coach. And it's great because I just go out and I do my video and chop it up and send it to him. And then he gives me next steps or tells me where he thinks it's weak or makes adjustments, even from his own online class, right? So I could be following his online class perfectly, but he's like, for you and your very special, has no idea of where his body is and has no self-preservation dog. Let's try this a little bit different, right? So like adjusting it for the dog.
Right. And for people who are interested, Sarah will go ahead and put a link to you and stuff in the show notes. So
yes.
You can reach out to him if you like.
And just, I guess, to throw around a little bit of love around, I know, you with Gitchy have worked with Sylvia Turkman with running contacts with great success.
So that was going to be my example.
We're going to talk about running contacts.
Probably, right? We're all going to do it, right? Yeah. So I guess we should probably talk about other things. Well, I'll give an example rather than being, well, no, I guess I can give a super specific example, but I do lean a lot on other people. So there are people out there, as I said earlier, that I learn a great deal from just watching how they do things. And a story that I think maybe I've told maybe 200 podcasts ago is there was an amazing I want to say it was a Portuguese water dog here in Texas. Had the most amazing teeter I'd ever seen. The dog would just slide to the end and write it down. So good. The dog was good just in general. And I was so impressed for months, maybe years. And then finally I said, I'm gonna ask her.
How she taught it.
How did she do it? Can she help me get a better teeter? And I went and I asked her and she said, a lot of people ask me this. And she says, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I have no idea how this dog got this amazing teeter. And I said, oh, well, thank you very much. Your dog is totally awesome. So I think I would encourage people out there, if you see something and you're like, oh, I want that, like, go and ask. I think most people are very generous with their time and their knowledge and definitely flattered. It's always helpful to lead with, your dog is so amazing and you're fantastic. And can I ask you a question? So I think that's great. So that's my example there.
I'll just throw out two quick ones that I've personally done, and that is canine fitness.
Nice.
That's like a whole other aspect of agility that I don't think it's fair to expect your instructor to carve out time in a group class of 1 hour. If you're one of 6 people and you only get 1 hour, they're going to focus on agility skills because you're there for agility. But I think canine fitness, whether you have an issue, you're trying to improve flexibility, or what I find is, once you feel like you're pretty solid at a maintenance stage on skills, but you want that little edge, it's like, okay, now we focus on strength, we focus on power, we focus on speed. So that's one where I've worked with specific coaching to try to improve my dog skills. And then mental management. That is something that I did. I did that online through an online class because I was working with somebody who didn't live in close proximity. So kind of going back to where you were talking about the day and age where now we have so many virtual options. that is something that I seek kind of specialization on, is the mental management and kind of the mental game. So there are two others that, to me directly affect agility and your agility performance, but would not necessarily be a topic that the average agility instructor would provide. I know for me, I would consider myself like an agility instructor by profession, and I would refer to other people for those. So if somebody came to me and they're like, all right, I want to work on fitness, let's work on that in our private lesson. I would say that's not my area of expertise. I don't feel real comfortable providing a lot of feedback. Hey, maybe you can go see this person. Maybe I can give them a few warm up and cool down drills, but to devise an entire plan around XYZ skill. And same thing with mental management. I can provide some of the advice and feedback that I myself have received. But I do think on that type of thing, it's so individual into how a person's brain works and what they think about and what they struggle with, that I would consider referring somebody on that one as well.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I wanted to kind of jump in and point out right now is that all three of us have people that we have gone to for some sort of instruction, whether that's running contacts, mental management, or anything else. And I think that speaks to the fact that we all need, we all can benefit from having external sources of information, having eyes other than our own on ourselves and our dogs and the things that we're doing. And I think that a lot of people can get a little self-conscious about the appearance of needing help. But I don't think that we should. I think every single person doing agility should feel very comfortable and confident to say that they are working with somebody else. And it's not a hierarchy. It's not like because I work with this person, that person is better than me. If you mapped it all out with all the agility trainers in the world, it would be a big tangled mess where like I get instruction from A gets instruction from B, but B gets instruction from me, so it's not.
And on all different aspects.
On all different aspects. So it's not like, I think getting away from thinking of if I get coaching from somebody that makes them better than me, and that's how other people are going to see it. I think if we can all get away from that kind of thinking, then it'll help everybody, because then everybody kind of can get coaching from multiple sources, reach out when you need help, get other eyes on your dog, no matter how, good you are, or if you're an instructor or not yourself, feeling comfortable to do that.
Great points. Now I want to talk a little bit about essentially coaching on demand, you might call it. And I think first we start with how coaching happened back in the day for the people who weren't here back in the day. But it was mostly your local weekly class, right? And then you would go to seminars. You might travel for them. Your instructor might bring a presenter to your area. If you were fortunate, someplace where you didn't have to drive, you're hosting it at your training site. And that's where you would get your instruction. But of course, the internet technology has changed all of that. I think most people know here at Bad Dog Agility, we were big into an app on iPads and iPhones called Coach's Eye, which is now essentially defunct because they no longer support the app, right? And so the app doesn't really work in the way that it did before. We've replaced that with something called OnForm, ONFORM. Essentially a newer, better, and more importantly, supported by developers and coders and whatnot, app that you can use to show your run in slow motion, right? Back and forth, mark on it, arrows, circles. Voiceover, right? And so you can not only evaluate your own run, but obviously other people's runs. You can get your run evaluated. That's what we do for our VIP members, right? And people who come and train with us. And it's that kind of technology, right? And the ease with which we can tape everything, and not just runs at trials, but practice sessions, right? And turn around, post that on the internet, get a YouTube link up there, get it to your instructor. They get it into Coach's Eye, OnForm, and get you some very timely feedback. So I think that's why we are seeing such a rapid evolution in handling and training. And you talking about the running contact class. I mean, essentially, how does that work? Like, how does someone thousands of miles away coach you and your Malinois to do running contact? So briefly, like, how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, you just said it, right? It's like I go out, I
Tape it.
I tape it, I send it, and then
You edit it up.
I edit it up to make it easy, and I send it, and then I get a response back that's like, do another session or two just like that, or let's add motion, or let's, add a plank to your dog walk, or, like whatever it is that we're going to do. And then, that's the next thing that I go out and do.
Yeah. So it's an amazing time that we live in.
I do love living in this technology world as a technology person.
That's right. That's right.
You mean instead of saying Webster, I should say Wikipedia? Is that going to be a better?
Maybe.
Oh, that is so good. You've been thinking about that for several minutes.
I know. I didn't
That's
even
really
think
good.
about it till I commented, and that's more relevant. I should say I'm not Wikipedia. That might be more online with some of the technology we're talking about.
Right.
That's why it was so cool when you said Webster.
I know.
I think of Jennifer as like
super
younger than me. Well, younger than me.
Younger than you.
So
I'm super young. I just I wanted to use some references that you guys would relate to. That's all.
Oh gosh.
She's like 25 or something. Okay. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, again, I mentioned briefly in the beginning, is I think that so many of you listening out there don't realize this, especially if you're a beginner. You don't realize this, but you are out there and you are helping other competitors, because it turns out we get instruction all the time. Humans and dogs are constantly learning. It's not like your dog is walking around the house and he's like, I don't feel like learning right now, Mom. I'm not learning anything. Your dog is constantly learning from the environment, other dogs, figuring out how the world works, right? And humans do that as well. And anytime you're helping a friend, you're giving a little feedback, telling them, hey, I think you're late on this cross, you need to do it sooner. Or you take your friend aside and say, hey, your dog keeps breaking the start line and you just keep on running. And this is why you're having that problem. I'm pretty sure. I'm no expert. I'm not the instructor, but maybe you should do something about that. You are, in fact, providing instruction. And might I say, very good instruction. So I think this speaks to the community, the communal aspect of dog agility. And I think if you are more aware of it, you will look for opportunities not to get out there on any kind of a soapbox or start teaching a class or anything like that, but just have this idea of, one, being helpful to people, and two, being more observant of dogs that are not your dogs. Because I know certainly for myself, there was a time where, agility was pure release for me from the stresses of work, right? And being a physician or a long shift or whatever. And you come there and I'm like focused on my dog. I run my thing, but that's it. Like I go, I put the dog back in the crate and then I'm waiting for my next turn. I'm not really watching what's going on with other people. And I imagine in today's world with cell phones that I can picture a class where 10 people are looking at their cell phone and then the 11th person is running their dog, and it just repeats as you go from person to person. But you can learn a lot from watching other people, and you never know when that's going to come back and be useful to you or to a peer of yours, a friend of yours, right? Or your next dog. So I've had that experience.
I also think that is a testament to kind of like debunking the myth of a hierarchy of instruction and coaching. I think a lot of people think that in order to get assistance, in order to get help, in order to get instruction, they have to have somebody who's been doing this sport longer or has more titles or is more accomplished than them. And so we think there's just, there has to be this hierarchy. I have to find somebody who's better than me or smarter than me or has been doing it longer than me to get help. And I don't think that's the case, right? I mean, as you said, sometimes, somebody who's provided instruction or feedback has been a peer, right? Somebody who's in your class, or maybe even somebody who's been doing agility less time than you. So I don't like the idea that sometimes people will say to me, oh, I'm not going to them for instruction. They've not even been doing agility as long as I have. Or I'm not going to them because I'm more titled than they are. It doesn't mean that they can't have kind of feedback on that. So even if it's one little thing that's a takeaway, that's something that maybe benefits you. So, kind of, again, peers or people that you're watching in class, I think can really offer a lot of feedback.
That is such a great point. It's not always going to be a world champion or someone who fancies themselves well known or the flashiest kind of speaker or, that.
Or maybe even somebody that doesn't do it for a living, right? There's a lot of people who teach and instruct and have a ton of information who have normal jobs, right? So you don't have to always get that instruction for somebody who's quote unquote a professional teacher, professional instructor.
Yeah. And I've often found that people like that who don't teach at all, but who've been in agility for a long time and are very good, can sometimes be a little reluctant to dole out the advice. And perhaps with good reason. There's a reason that they're not an instructor. It's not something that they enjoy or want to do. And certainly that is okay. Right. But yeah, I love the point that you're making there. So I'm like, I don't need you to be some kind of super duper expert with 100 years of experience. I just need you to know a little more than me about this problem that I'm working on and maybe get me going on the next step, point me in the right direction.
Well, and a lot of times you don't even need somebody who knows more than you, right? You need somebody that maybe is not as emotional as you about that issue, right? Somebody that can watch with and be a little bit more, have a little bit more clarity when they watch you and your dog than maybe you're able to have in that moment, right? So sometimes we get frustrated, sometimes we get upset, and sometimes we just need a kind of a neutral person to look over it and say, okay, actually, that wasn't that bad. Or actually, like what happened there was your timing, right? Not your dog's fault or something like that. But I think that's why just that those eyeballs that are outside of your own are super duper valuable.
Totally agree. I think we've had a really good discussion now. And hopefully everybody sees, we started with the podcast title, right? Which is why you need a coach, even if you don't think you do. And I hope that you can see, given the state of modern agility, everyone probably could use many coaches. And in fact, you probably have several coaches right now if you really think about it. Who are you working with? Who's helping you? Who's giving you tips and advice and helping you get better? And I think the twist here in this podcast is that you yourself may very well be considered a coach or instructor by someone else, right? And so I think that's a really cool thing about agility.
And as we wrap up, I just wanted to say one last thing about coaching, and that is that the three of us do coach people online through our VIP program. And that program is a membership that opens one time a year to new members. And that time is coming up very, very soon, depending on when you're listening to this. So keep your eyes on our website, and our Facebook, on the mailing list for your chance to work with us. And that's it for this week's podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Synoviton OA and hititboard.com. Check out the Teeter Teach It, only at hititboard.com. The Teeter Teach It is an easy-to-use tool that controls the amount of tip on your teeter so you can introduce motion to your dog in a gradual way. Go to hititboard.com for the new Teeter Teach It and other training tools and toys. Use discount code BDA10 to get 10% off your order. That's hititboard.com. Happy training!
Thank you for listening to Bad Dog Agility. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, updates, and links to all our socials, just check out our website, www.baddogagility.com. If you haven't already signed up for our email subscription, we would love to have you join the BDA community. Until next time, take care.